restless dreams. I see that town. Silent Hill.
Ooh, whatto chaps, I'm MagicalMike, and recently I played Silent Hill 1 and 2 for the very first time, and also streamed them on Twitch. In case you're interested, you can watch those entire playthroughs at twitch.tv/MagicalMike2. Check the collections tab for the playlists, and I'll put links in the description of this video as well. So I've known these games have been considered classics for as long as they've been talked about. I've watched a number of speedruns for them and a couple of full Let's Plays to see people's reactions to things and to get the story. You see, I never owned a copy of either of these games. Survival horror has never really appealed to me as a genre, and I figure I've seen them enough times anyway. But for Halloween, this year I decided to give them a go from a player's perspective. And let me tell you, oh yes, it does indeed make a difference. Watching these games played is a very different experience from my point of view to actually being in control of them. Most of the times I've seen them played is by people who already know the game, or the genre, and the expectations, people who understand where to go, what items to get, how to get them, and where best to use weapons and ammunition, health pickups, and they have a good feel for how much damage the character can take and where to use them and all this efficiency stuff. It's fundamentally not scary in any way to these players, and that's not to say that the games are truly spooky these days, and then they can be. Back in the late 90s and the early 2000s when they first came out, they absolutely were. And as a kid, I was terrified of the opening section in the original. Those little knife-wielding alien weird kid things were genuinely shocking at the time.
What is this? What's going on here?
But nowadays the visuals are, well, they're definitely dated. You've really got to immerse yourself in the ideas and give it some slack, but if you allow that, then the atmosphere and the sound design, the enemies, the feeling of being confused, lost or on edge a lot of the time does actually shine through a really good deal. And the controls go a long way to impart that feeling as well. It's tank controls, so you press up on the stick to move in the direction that the character's facing specifically, left and right to pivot that character, and a run button that includes a wind up animation and a wind down animation when changing directions too sharply, and fairly non-responsive strafe controls mean that in particular, Harry's control in Silent Hill 1 is very sluggish to say the least. I had to fight the controls almost as much as the enemies, but that's part of the experience I think. If it was easier to control, I reckon that the moment of panic when getting stuck in a tight spot would just be lost completely. I guess to most people that sort of thing is considered frustrating, and it can be, sure, but I can forgive it here. Silent Hill 2 improves a lot though. Being on the PS2, the analog controls are much better and James can turn and move much more freely, though he has this awfully slow recovery whenever he fires the shotgun or the rifle, which did get me hit a lot of times during the late game. Which means that the awkward risk-reward of movement was shifted slightly to an awkward sort of risk-reward in getting close enough to use the shotgun more effectively in 2. Another aspect of survival horror are the items and the need to manage your resources. The whole survival bit of survival horror, that part is fairly important. With health being unclearly displayed, I always had to ask if using a health drink was worth it early on, but was it worth the risk to try and wait for more supplies? What about ammo as well? How worth it was to shoot my way through early areas? Was the ammo trade-off worth it to save on health items, or was it a total waste? Could I have run past a lot more stuff? Probably, and I ended up mixing my strategies up quite a lot over time. Overall though, I ended up exploring thoroughly enough to never run out of health items or ammo in both games, opting to start shooting pretty much everything in the enclosed spaces after the first main stage of each game, so generally in the hospital sections. I started blasting my way through all the enemies. So the games did actually end up rewarding my exploration quite well. I was able to use the shotgun quite liberally after a while, and around, I'd say around the middle of each of the games, I had heaps of health drinks and ampules, whatever these things are called. Melee was somewhat risky depending on the enemy and the weapon that I used. Nurses in Silent Hill 1 were easy pickings once I got the hammer, but in 2 they were deadly, swinging, flaily, weird things that practically run at James much more quickly than they did in the original. Big risk to try and melee those guys. While the games weren't what you would call scary in modern terms, they do have a lot of horror tropes and designs that I genuinely really loved. I don't want to explain it all here because it could even just ruin the plots and everything. There's a lot going on in these games, I'm sure you already know. But the enemy designs and the symbolism in the town, the character dialogue, the actions that everyone takes, it's all very well crafted. Basically, every little detail can be read into and deciphered to learn so much more about the psychological horror aspect of these games. And while Silent Hill 1 has some of this, Silent Hill 2 takes this concept and pretty much just becomes it, really. And so while there's not a lot of jump scares per se, they are still used just very, very rarely. I can think of maybe 5 off the top of my head, such as these ones, for example. Let's just do some sprinterinos. Oh, those things. Ah, they lunge at you. Okay, you know what? I'm good on supplies. Let's just go for the whole heckin' sprinterino. What the fuck was that? Oh good. A really lovely toilet. Hello, jump scare. Knock on the door but there's no answer. Hello? Hello, 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 hello. That must be so annoying. You were in there. Let's examine this. Let's not. Okay. Guess there's no one here. Shit me. God. Oh, that made all the hair stand up on my head. No, thanks. Not my proudest of moments, I must say. A lot of the horror comes from thinking about the meanings behind everything. The voice acting, for example, I'm just kidding. The voice acting it can be quite scarily bad sometimes, but the freakish sound design and the uncertainty of everything it all adds up, you know? The level designs are large and initially very overwhelming, at least for me, but I never felt truly lost with the map in hand. Puzzles are fun, the riddles and the solutions were mostly fair, apart from the fridge bit in Silent Hill 1. If you've played it, you know the one, you know that bit that I'm talking about. Very unfair. I just happen to already know the solution to that one. The town has character. You know what, I could go on for quite a long time, but I think I'll just keep this video a little bit shorter. But basically, what I'm trying to say is this. These games are considered some of the best in the genre for a reason, and I've now found out those reasons firsthand. And I would strongly recommend that you go and play these too, if you're at all interested. I mean, the chances of you having not played these things is quite slim, especially if you're watching this video. But yeah, you know, they deserve a quids in video if I'm completely honest, but I did entire playthroughs of them that you can go and watch instead, you know, links in the description on Twitch, yeah? Yeah? I've been Magical Mike, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.